The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Sunday, the 14th of December, 2025. Welcome to This Week with Mary Holland, President and CEO of Children's Health Defense, and myself, Polly Tommey. Right, Mary, let's get straight on with our news. So the first two articles, the first one is AAP's news release. The decision by the Advisory Committee on Immunisation Practices of the CDC to downgrade its recommendations to protect infants from hepatitis B is a dangerous move that will harm children. This is according to the American Academy of Pediatrics. So forget that. Go to the Defender with Michael Nevradakis. The AAP rejects new Hep B recommendations, claims kids will die if newborns don't get the shot. The American Academy of Pediatrics said it will continue to recommend the Hep B vaccine for newborns, despite recommendations by the CDC vaccine advisors that babies not receive the vaccine until they are 2 months old. Some experts suggest the AAP's decision is motivated by conflicts of interest, not safety. Well, now the AAP all year, I mean, they get the prize for the most badly behaved organization for 2025, right?
You know, we've been thinking about what kind of awards should we give for all the bad behavior. Listen, I think they're showing themselves truly, Polly, as just a front organization for the pharmaceutical industry. That's what we're seeing here. It's a knee-jerk reaction. There is no more unfounded scientifically vaccine than the hepatitis B on the day of birth. Literally, the clinical trial was 154 children from age 0 to 10, and the trial lasted for 5 days. It's absurd that they want to say that, you know, if your baby on the day of birth doesn't get a hepatitis B vaccine, your baby's going to die. It's ridiculous, Polly. It's ridiculous. And they should be ashamed of themselves, and it really shows us who they are.
They should be ashamed of themselves because those young, vulnerable mothers with a name like American Academy of Pediatrics are really looking to them for advice, and they're lying. They're giving dangerous advice.
They're giving very dangerous advice, as Neil Miller's piece next shows.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get on to that. Neil Miller in the Defender. ACIP got it right. The hepatitis B vaccine is unnecessary and unsafe for newborns. While some authorities continue to assert that the hepatitis B vaccine is safe, two of my own studies provide evidence suggesting it may be dangerous. In one of our studies, we found that infants who had received only a single vaccine, the hepatitis B shot, typically given at birth, showed an unusually high rate of hospitalization and death. Truth again from the Defender.
Yeah, and Neil Miller, has really been working in this space for a long time and done really important studies that just show that the more vaccines a baby gets early in life, the more likely they are to be hospitalized or to die. And that comparing other countries that have fewer vaccines, including not having hepatitis B, also shows that it's best. So he said that this decision was wise and correct. I think we absolutely support that.
Okay, Michael Nevradakis in the Defender. Vaccine injury lawyer delivers scathing rebuke of childhood vaccine schedule. Offit HOTES declined invitation to debate. Attorney Aaron Seary told members of the CDC vaccine advisory panel that the childhood vaccines were recommended without sufficient data and that the expansion of the CDC schedule coincided with a rise in chronic illness among US children. The panel invited high-profile people proponents, Paul Offit, Peter HOTES, to present with Seary, but they declined. And the next article really follows into that, so you can talk about it all together. It's Marianne DeMasi in the Defender. Offit lied to CNN about ACIP meeting and hepatitis B data. CNN didn't fact check him. And so Dr. Paul Offit told CNN that the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices didn't invite him to speak at their meeting last week. However, internal documents show the CDC contracted him by email and phone and sent him a speaker request form. But Offit also falsely claimed that 50% of people in this country are chronically infected with hepatitis B without knowing it. Well, that is absolutely ridiculous.
So again, sort of the advocates for vaccines are showing their true colors, Polly. So Marianne Damassi's excellent Substack piece that we just reprinted shows the emails from the CDC to Dr. Offit, to his hospital address and to his university address, and he didn't answer. And then he says, "Oh, I was never contacted." It's ridiculous. And the 50% chronically ill, they just don't know it, is ridiculous. And Aaron Siri's presentation was excellent. It was based on some of the work that he had done with Secretary Kennedy at CHD many years ago. The US has the worst health outcomes of any developed country. The rise in vaccines is concomitant with the rise in chronic disease. It's unambiguous. And there's a huge disincentive to safety because of the liability shield from the 1986 Act and the PrEP Act. Those things are unambiguous. And so kudos to Aaron Siri and Paul Offit. You know, if you won't debate, if you won't talk to people who challenge you, you are worthless. You are not worth talking to because you won't even defend your own ideas. So lots of good things happening, Polly. That's the bottom line. Good things are happening.
Right, but they are like losing their minds, these people. I mean, from the
well, it's about time. It's about time.
Showing their true colors. Okay, Trump orders overhaul of US vaccine schedules. He's ordered his top health officials to review all US childhood vaccination recommendations and align them with the best practices from other developed countries. And then Michael Nevadakis has done a great article in The Defender. The headline is, "In show of support for RFK Jr., Trump orders comprehensive evaluation of childhood vaccine schedule. President Donald Trump directed HHS to fast-track a comprehensive review of the childhood immunization schedule." Trump also praised the CDC vaccine advisors for voting to end the recommendation that all newborns receive the Hep B vaccine. It's a great article by Michael Nevadakis, by the way.
It is a great article. And I think what's important here, Polly, is that President Trump is 100% behind Secretary Kennedy in reviewing the childhood schedule. Donald Trump, even before he ran for president for the 2016 election, was tweeting about the problems with vaccines. He's really serious about this issue, for which we have to be very grateful. And this article by Michael Nevadakis quotes Retsef Levy, who is a key person in the ACIP committee, talking to Washington Post, saying vaccines have risk currently not well understood. It is so terrific, Polly, that we have some new, highly credentialed people on that ACIP committee who I think are really starting to understand how serious these problems are. And James Lyons Weiler is quoted in this article, scientists saying, they're relying not on science to challenge ACIP and President Trump and Bobby Kennedy. They're relying apocalyptic rhetoric. That's exactly right. This is all this hyperbolic, like, oh my God, the sky is falling. Yeah, just show us the science that kids are healthier because they get vaccines. They don't have it. If they had it, they would show it. They don't have it. And that's what's becoming crystal clear, I think, even to the American public generally, Polly.
Brenda Belletti in The Defender, HHS fires back at partisan theatrics after Democratic House member moves to impeach Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Haley Stevens filed articles of impeachment against the U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., accusing him of abuse of authority and undermining of the public health. The New York Times called the move an all but certainly futile bid to charge Kennedy with imperiling public health and scientific and medical progress.
My favorite part of this article, Polly, is that the New York Times, not our friend, generally says this is all but certainly a futile bid. There's a Republican majority. The president is supporting Secretary Kennedy. Like, they're not going to vote for impeachment. So this is pure partisan theatrics, as the HHS spokesman said. It's a distraction.
Suzanne Burdick in The Defender, FDA expands probe into COVID vaccine-related deaths to include adults. The FDA is expanding its investigation into reports of deaths following COVID-19 vaccines to include adults after initially looking into deaths of children who received the vaccine. The agency did not provide details about the investigation.
Well, that's terrific, Polly, that the FDA is really now starting to do the work that, should have been done 5 years ago on the COVID shots. But they have, in a leaked memo that we discussed last week, made clear that at least 10 children died from the vaccine, from vaccine-induced myocarditis. And now they're looking at adults. Again, this should have been done years ago, but they're doing it now, and I'm extremely grateful.
Mary, I just thought of something because I do get quite a few emails about this. When are we going to do something about the people who were killed in hospital? Because people are feeling that they're getting, you know, left out when we're talking about it.
We're working on that, Polly. So we are very concerned that, as we move away from COVID that started in 2019, 2020, the further we get, the less likely it is that it will be addressed. We have a strategy for 2026, Polly, to really amp up attention at a federal level to what happened during COVID and to ensure it never happens again. So we're on that.
Fantastic, because I think once that's all unlocked, it's going to horrify the world when they see what happened. Everybody, watch Victories. It's absolutely free in the movie section of CHD TV if you want to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, agreed. Terrific film.
Okay. Brenda Belletti in The Defender. Children's Health Defense asks FDA to revoke COVID vaccine licenses, calls on public to submit hundreds of thousands of comments. Children's Health Defense filed a citizen petition with the FDA urging the agency to revoke all existing licenses granted to the Pfizer, BioNTech and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. The petition alleges the FDA violated its own rules when it licensed the vaccines. CEO Mary Holland called on the public to submit comments on the FDA website. Now, we've been talking about this all week, which is great, and I know that it's doing well, but some people are still a bit confused on how they submit comments. So can you talk us through that?
Yeah, so this is what's called a citizen petition that we submitted to the FDA. We've done this in the past. The FDA has 180 days to respond, but in the interim, people can write in and say, this is what I think about the COVID vaccines. We're arguing that what the FDA did was illegal. We said in the petition, they jumped tracks from an EUA, emergency use authorization shots, to biologic license application approved. You can't jump tracks. For the biological license, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, including having a hospital institutional review board look over, a scientific review board look over. You have to go through much more rigorous clinical trials. You have to have true informed consent, true documents about what people are getting, very different manufacturing processes. They didn't follow good manufacturing processes. So this is a very legal document based on knowledge of Sasha Latipova, who is in the pharmaceutical industry for 25 years. You didn't follow your own rules, so you need to make it right. And so in the interest of what Secretary Kennedy has talked about of transparency and integrity, they have to either revert to an EUA label in our view, or they have to just remove the licenses and remove the products. But they can't just pretend like they actually have legitimate licenses. And as Latipova says in his quote in this article, and I really agree, the FDA is abrogating its duty and continues to deteriorate what is left of the public trust in health regulations in the United States. By keeping these licenses in place on these shots that should not have these licenses, they are undermining trust in the institution. So it will be very interesting to see when and how the FDA responds. But I do expect, Polly, they will respond certainly before the end of 180 days. In the first day, in the first 24 hours that this petition went up, it received over 100,000 comments.
Yeah.
So in this article that we're talking about, and I'm sure we will include here, where you go to a government website to include your comment about the COVID shots.
Brenda Belletti, Defender. Vaccine court awards family $310,000. Rules encephalitis after MMR shot killed toddler. This is the family of 14-month-old Violet Sky Rodella, who died 19 days after getting an MMR and after routine vaccines. She won compensation from the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program for the toddler's death. Violet's case, along with other cases awarded earlier this year, offers lessons for future infant death cases in vaccine court, according to a working group of researchers and advocates. It's just so tragic. And, Mary, as you know, sadly, this has happened so many times. This is not the first case of the MMR killing.
Oh, not at all, Polly. So let me just a little bit of commentary here. In the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, most cases of death are rejected. Only 50 infant deaths have ever been compensated since 1986 in the Injury Compensation Program. What's interesting and encouraging here is they're acknowledging, using proper coroner's tests, that there was brain inflammation, there was encephalitis after MMR within 15 days. And that is an on-table injury. You don't have to litigate that. It is clear that if you have brain inflammation that causes injury or death, you should be compensated. And what I want to really call out, this is based on a Substack by our friend Wayne Rohde, who has written 2 books about the injury compensation program. But one of the members of this working group is DeVoe Price, who works here at Children's Health Defense and Development. So I'm very proud of her work in this working group. This is very important in establishing that SIDS is a total misnomer, sudden infant death or sudden unexplained death. That's a total misnomer. In most cases, this is related to inflammation caused by the vaccines, either inflammation of the heart, myocarditis, or inflammation of the brain and a stroke. Anyway, this is tragic. It's absolutely tragic to kill babies with what is supposed to keep them healthy. But it's now becoming clearer and clearer that the vaccines are doing that. And that's important.
Yeah, and 310,000 for the death of your child. There's no money.
It's nothing, Polly. It's nothing. They never have increased the amounts of money, Polly, since 1986. Can you imagine how much inflation? There's been tenfold inflation from 1986. That should be $2.5 million, but it was never indexed. So everything about this program, everything about the compulsory vaccine schedule is wrong. But again, this is starting to bring a little bit of attention and clarity to it.
So the MMR has just killed, yet again, another child. So this leads into the next one. So Michael Novodakis, defender, line here. South Carolina measles outbreak spurs renewed debate about MMR vaccine. The South Carolina health officials warned this week that a measles outbreak primarily affecting children is accelerating. They blamed rising vaccine hesitancy for the increase in cases. Some news outlets pointed the finger at federal health policy and specifically U.S. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Link some doctors and scientists rejected. So first of all, we've just had an article again about the MMR killing, and now they're trying to push the MMR because there's some measles going on and we've just had measles in Florida. Now it's moved to South Carolina, and this is what happens when you get measles. Also, Mary, let's remind people that with proper care and attention and rest, children do get over measles.
I'm old enough that when I was a child, every child got measles before age 15. It was considered a routine childhood illness, and it was considered only moderately of an issue. It's not that big a deal. For a healthy child, rest, vitamin C, vitamin A, and you'll get through it. And if, in fact, it's a serious case with some kind of complication, which can happen, there are real treatments for that. Yeah. So this is completely overblown. They are resting on the idea that 2 girls died in West Texas as the great work that you and Brian Hooker and others did. They didn't die of measles. They died of mistreated pneumonia. And that's very important that we continue to beat that drum. They did not die of measles. That adult also did not die of measles. That was somebody who refused all medical attention. So they lie, Polly. We know that. They're trying to keep this vaccine program alive, and they know they're in trouble.
Well, I just want to say something really important. So they're pointing the finger at Robert F. Kennedy Jr. because the vaccine rates, they say, are low. I just cannot get this across strong enough. The vaccine rates are low because the people see what happens to their child when they vaccinate. And if they see what happens to their best friend's child who vaccinated. People are not stupid. This really seriously undermining the intelligence of the parents of America. The reason they're not vaccinating is because they see the injury and death that it caused. Nothing to do with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
No, it's the same old nonsense, Polly. They blamed Andy Wakefield that people didn't vaccinate. Now they're blaming Bobby Kennedy. It's ridiculous. No, people make up their own minds, as they should. That's what health freedom means. You get to decide, do you want an MMR shot or do you want your kid to run the risk of getting measles? Especially because there are no measles vaccines. It's really an added risk for a child in any way to take an MMR triple combo shot that we know has higher risk profile. It's up to parents to make those decisions for their children. And, measles is not a walk in the park, but it's also not a deadly disease. In this country, it is absolutely not a deadly disease, as the West Texas outbreak showed us.
Let's talk about the vitamin K shot. This is NBC News reporting. More parents are refusing vitamin K shots for newborns. Study finds it's a trend that experts worry could have deadly consequences. Well, what could have deadly consequences is the vitamin K shot. And again, we've seen so much injury from that shot.
We've
Parents
seen
not
tremendous.
seeing
It
again.
contains aluminum. It's given, again, much like Hep B, it's given universally. It's not based on whether the baby needs that or not. It's a serious problem. I did an interview with Marcella Piper Terry several months ago, specifically on vitamin K. That's worth looking at.
And Suzanne Humphries was saying, and we'll get her to do more on this, but the colostrum from a woman, as soon as you're breastfeeding your baby, that has vitamin K in, and that's what boosts your baby up along those lines. But we'll get Suzanne to look into that more, somebody to look into that more. We need to do more on the vitamin K for sure. We will.
Agree.
Okay, let's talk about whooping cough then. Whooping cough can be terrifying, but what are vaccines? The answer: health officials are urging parents, pregnant women and family members of infants under age 2 months to get the DTaP vaccine as cases of whooping cough rise. Vaccine safety advocate Dr. Suzanne Humphries explained why the vaccine may make matters worse and what other methods parents can use to protect and treat infants. Many of you saw her do that on CHD TV. In fact, we had a lot of comments on that whooping cough.
Good.
Show Suzanne did.
So this article links to that discussion, which is great. And Dr. Suzanne Humphries goes over the ways to treat whooping cough and acknowledges it can be terrifying. It can be very scary, but that the shot itself is ineffective and has contributed to the more virulent mutant strains that are causing pertussis outbreaks. So it's an important issue.
Yesterday, many of you will have seen Paul Thomas also talking about whooping cough as well. So listen to our doctors. They're very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very knowledgeable. Okay, Brenda Belletti in The Defender. FDA to probe safety of RSV shot for infants. Citing deaths reported in clinical trials, the agency plans to investigate 2 monoclonal antibody shots, Beyfortus, made by Sanofi, and AstraZeneca and Enflozia, made by Merck. Both are currently recommended for most infants in the US. Questions about the shot's safety surfaced last summer, an HHS person told Reuters. Good, Mary. They're starting to look into all of these things.
It's very good. So the RSV shots, respiratory syncytial virus, were just added to this schedule within the last year. And I'm happy to see that Dr. Malone says he regrets having voted for it because he saw, inaccurate information. This is not giving immunity. These are not vaccines. This is giving what they are calling passive immunity, meaning they're giving babies antibodies to this viral infection. The 2024 Beyfortus had revenue of $2.6 billion from this shot. But in the clinical trials, more babies died who got the RSV shots than in the babies who didn't get them. I'm really glad they're reviewing this because I think this is, frankly, a very dangerous intervention for babies.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's talk about religious exemptions. So Suzanne Burdick in The Defender. US Supreme Court ruling on religious exemptions, a big win, but decision is far from final. The US Supreme Court delivered a big win for religious exemptions from school-based vaccine mandates, but more work lies ahead to ensure that parents who oppose vaccines on religious grounds can opt out of vaccinating their kids in order to send them to school, said lawyers who spoke with The Defender. Suzanne Burdick in The Defender again. Checkmate. US Supreme Court delivers huge win for religious exemptions. The US Supreme Court reversed a lower court decision against a group of Amish parents and school leaders who challenged the state of New York's vaccine mandates for schools, ruling that the appeals court must reconsider this case. The ruling could have implications for other states that don't allow religious exemptions, attorneys said.
So I want to clarify, Polly, it's not over. It checkmate, but when somebody puts the king in checkmate, that king's side still has opportunities to move. So what happened was 2 different groups, but there was a case brought on behalf of Amish schools that were being fined because they were not checking vaccination status. They don't believe that you should have to be vaccinated as a part of their religion, as a part of their community. They didn't have that. So in New York State Federal District Court, the trial court, they said there's no automatic right to free exercise of religion or religious exemption. That's the law in New York. It went up to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed that lower court decision. They just said, yep, there's no right to a religious exemption in New York. It's not required by the Constitution. And then a certiorari petition Supreme Court, will you review this case, was sent to the Supreme Court. What's really important about that petition to the Supreme Court is that 21 attorneys generals of Republican-led states joined in that petition and said, Supreme Court, will you please review this issue? We support the idea that there should be religious exemptions everywhere. It was those 21 Attorney General friend of the court briefs that I think were critical here. In June, the Supreme Court issued a decision in a case called Mahmoud versus Taylor and said that parents have religious freedom rights to pull their kids out of classes that are in violation of their religion. And that was related to LGBTQ instruction and books in the classroom, but that parents had an absolute right to say, this violates my religious beliefs. I'm going to pull my kid out during those things that violate my religious beliefs. So what happened just this week is that the Supreme Court said, Second Circuit, you need to review your decision in Miller versus McDonald in light of Mahmoud v. Taylor. We gave instructions that were subsequent to your decision in March of 2025. We want you to look at our June decision and come back, and reissue the decision. So we don't really know what that means, Polly. It means that the Second Circuit Court of Appeals could rewrite their decision and say, you're right, there should be a religious exemption in every state, or they could review their decision and say, no, we were right, there's no right to a religious exemption in New York State. In which case, Polly, then for sure, in my view, the case will go back to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is going to have to tell us what is the state of religious freedom under the First Amendment when it comes to exemptions from vaccines. So we are in a kind of, I agree with Sudata Gibson, who is an attorney for us on these kinds of cases, particularly in New York. I agree with her that this is a checkmate situation. We are coming to a final decision on this. Is the Supreme Court going to say, yes, as a matter of free exercise of religion, you have the right to declare a religious exemption for your child? Or is the Supreme Court going to say, nope, there's no religious right here? They've shown us with the Mahmoud decision that they are taking an expansive view of free exercise of religion claims. So I'm very hopeful, Polly, that by June 2026, which will be the end of this term of the Supreme Court, that we will have religious exemptions throughout the country in all 50 states, if not before.
Amazing work from Children's Health Defense and other groups, but Children's Health Defense.
We have definitely been behind this since the repeal of the religious exemption in New York State in 2019. We have been on it. Next week, we will be talking about another suit that we will have filed on this very issue in New York. We are on it. True health freedom means that you get to decide what medical interventions you get or don't get for your body and your children, full stop. We don't even believe, Polly, that your reason should have to be religious. It should be whatever is your decision because it's your body. And if you don't have control over your body and the bodies of your children, you are not free. So we are 1,000% behind getting, expanding the religious exemptions and then ultimately expanding this so that you have true informed consent or informed refusal. It's up to you, not the government.
Yeah, very good. Okay, well, this article is from Katie Wright. I know Katie, she's a fantastic human being. She's been in this fight a long time. My parents founded Autism Speaks after vaccines injured my son. Now the group blames genetics, not vaccines. The group denies the harm vaccines cause to millions of children and has focused all its research on trying to identify a genetic cause for autism. Katie was expelled from Autism Speaks for refusing to stop talking about her son's injury. And as she quite rightly says in there, Autism Speaks exists because of her son's injury.
Polly, I'm so happy that Katie wrote this. Katie was on the board of Children's Health Defense. She is an OG, she's an old gangster in this fight, and she's really made a difference. And Autism Speaks was created in honor of her son, Christian, who was severely affected by his vaccines. And then in this whole ACIP and reviewing the hepatitis B, the Autism Speaks has come out and said, there's no connection between vaccines and autism. Or I guess it was in connection with the CDC changing its webpage. It's appalling. It's hypocrisy and lies of the most virulent kind. They exist because of vaccine-induced autism, and they deny that there's any connection between vaccines and autism.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that Katie was willing to share her experience with us, because it's really important.
It's important. Suzanne Burdick and the Defender Children's Health Defense and Los Angeles County settle lawsuit over 5G towers. Under the settlement, Los Angeles County officials must ensure that new cell towers and 5G antennas meet strict fire risk safety standards, and that residents are given a 2-week notice and comment period before the county approves new tower applications. The settlement was reached after 2 years of litigation by Children's Health Defense and a coalition of community and environmental groups advocating for safe technology. Well done, Mary. Again, well done.
Yeah, very exciting. Some of these things take a long time, Polly, but we won this case a couple years ago. And so this has been wrangling largely, Polly, about what payments and what are the terms of the settlement. So we will be getting legal fees. The plaintiffs will be getting money. And the terms are that what you just articulated, that the city can't continue to do what it was doing, basically creating a kind of a digital world in anticipation of the Olympics in Los Angeles in 2028. They wanted to have surveillance everywhere, and you can only participate in the city if you have a cell phone and you use QR codes. And fortunately, the court was very, very clear, saying, no, that is not the law. You don't have to have a cell phone. You don't have to participate digitally in this society to exist.
Right. Okay, well, this next article, I've been having, since I wrote this up for the show, lots of discussions with friends over it. So did you know that Christmas trees can be toxic? Didn't know that. So Defenders is by Center for Biological Diversity. Are toxic pesticides on Christmas trees poisoning kids? Environmental and nursing groups petitioned the EPA and the MAHA Commission to investigate children's risks from pesticide-treated Christmas trees, noting that farms in 6 major states spray 270,000 pounds of chemicals each year. The group alleged that federal agencies have never evaluated household exposure to these pesticides, many of which are known neurotoxins, carcinogens, and endocrine disruptors. And we were talking to Renette, who was on Financial Rebellion, and she said also some flowers that you buy in the store are also sprayed with chemicals. I didn't know any of this, Mary.
Yeah, I didn't either, Polly. Yeah, it makes sense, and it's frightening, frankly.
Yeah, it is. So more to come on that. I'm going to do a little bit of more of a dive into that, I think, with CHD TV, just to find out a little bit more about, you have to look into these things because the kids are around them the whole time. So, well, that's the news for this week with Mary and I, and I'll be with you tomorrow on CHD TV Live. Got an exciting show for you. And yes, Mary, it's nearly the end of the year, racing along.
Racing, what a year. What a year.
Yeah,
but yeah, we're here again next week, Polly, and then we'll be off for the Christmas New Year's week. But we'll be thinking about sort of where we've been for the whole year, right?
Yeah, well, when we say we'll be off, CHD TV will not be off. Don't worry. We still got you every single day. We will be showing you, be able to sit and chat with each other and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yes, there's great content. That's true, Polly.
Yeah, we're going to be showing, actually, we're going to be showing the panels from the conference.
Yeah, from the conference, which was so powerful. So yeah, I'm very excited that everybody will have access to what we learned at the conference.
Well, I'll see you tomorrow. But until then, pray big, stand firm, and never settle. I'll see you tomorrow.
Our first article relates to the Paris Agreement and the nationally determined contributions to reduce greenhouse gases. So this is an article that covers that in 2025, there were supposed to be ratcheting, higher levels of contributions, financial contributions, and lowering greenhouse gas emissions. And this is sort of within this Paris Agreement facilitated by the UN. Tell us what this really means. This is the World Resource Institute has put out this article. Explain this to us if you would.
I'll keep it short. It means absolutely nothing. smoke and mirrors. Let's pretend we're going to change business as usual when behind closed doors, and this is what all the COP climate conferences are about, forcing countries to actively or passively participate in the climate engineering insanity and portraying to them, other countries and dignitaries from those countries and other climate scientists that won't tell the truth, refuse to even acknowledge what's happening in our skies. But let's all pretend that this is some sort of mitigation, something that's going to make a bad situation better. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's taking us from the frying pan, putting us in the fire. Mary, did you know that yesterday and the day before we had temperatures in parts of the Southwest of 90 degrees, 89 and 90?
Wow.
Because the media doesn't want you to know that. And in fact, what schedule for the next coming days, that map's helpful. In fact, the current map that's even a day newer is even worse than that. That map, meteorologically speaking, is completely impossible without climate engineering. So that bullseye of red, meaning that's about 6 tiers above normal temperatures, each tier being about 3 degrees plus. So we're going to have record obliterating heat through half the country. That's a high pressure heat dome, an ionosphere heater induced high pressure heat dome. And they do have weapons of mass destruction like this. Harpin, Alaska is a weapon of mass destruction that serves the power structure so completely because it looks like some sort of benign antenna facility in the middle of nowhere in Alaska that can literally manipulate the protective layers of our atmosphere like the ionosphere. So this high pressure dome compressing, sinking air spins the jet stream clockwise around that with the moisture going with the jet stream. And Mary, did you know there's flooding occurring right now in the Pacific Northwest in Washington?
No.
There's massive record flooding in places because all the moisture that would have otherwise come into the West is being steered around, again, clockwise around that high pressure heat dome, comes back down into the eastern U.S. around the Great Lakes. They're chemically nucleating that moisture the whole way. It's like a giant snow blowing machine. And that dries up much of the moisture in that cooling process. It's an endothermic reaction. The West, at minimum, is a climate sacrifice zone to keep the most populated portions of the U.S. colder in the East, just in time for the holidays. Let's have some sensationalized winter weather media coverage. Unfortunately, too many people online, Mary, that pretend to be telling the truth are pretending that these flash cool downs are somehow a sign of global cooling or unbelievably ridiculous mantra of coming ice age. And they'll show a map like what you just showed and focus only on the blue cool spot and completely ignoring the other half of the country that's brilliant, bright red. There you go. So where's the coldest place in the entire, or the most anomalously cold place in the entire world? Exactly on that map where it shows those 40 below normal anomalous temperatures. And that's the only thing media focuses on. It's the only thing many internet sites that want to push certain narratives that, unfortunately, exactly the narratives the controllers and the climate engineers want. Let's pretend there's massive cooling everywhere. And the second the moisture's gone, temperatures go right back through the roof.
We're live now. Tell us your name, please.
MJ Bolt.
And how many children have you got?
I have 2.
And this is about your eldest child?
This is about my youngest son.
Youngest son. Okay, so let's talk first of all about when you were pregnant. Did you and your husband have any conversation about vaccinations at all?
No. No conversations about vaccinations. Really never heard anything about it until after my boys were born.
Okay, so we're going to talk about your second child. So how was the pregnancy? Did you have any vaccinations during pregnancy?
No pregnancies during vaccination. Or no vaccinations during pregnancy, correct.
How was he when he was born?
He was fine as far as we knew. He was a little bit difficult labor, but not as hard as the first one.
Okay, and so did he have Hep B and vitamin K at birth?
Everything, and he did have Pictosin too. They had to help me deliver him. He was a big boy. So I did have some Pictosin, if I remember.
Yeah, which is what they give you in pregnancy to
help
bring the placenta or bring
help get the help.
Okay, so you stuck on the CDC schedule, did as you were told. When did you notice something was wrong?
Well, after the MMR, so about 18 months with my second son, I noticed they had a rash and had some other, earaches and stuff. And I'm pretty sure he got some antibiotics at that time too. But he stopped talking, and I didn't really, it didn't really dawn on me until later, until I learned more about autism. But he stopped talking for 2 years. He had started talking. He had started saying mama, dada. And we had 2 sons, 18 months apart, so life was a little crazy. And so I wasn't, right on top of it. My other son was slow to speak, but then once he started speaking, he was, super verbal. And so I wasn't too worried about it, but he certainly did stop talking for 2 years.
And how old is he now?
He's 26.
So this CDC schedule was nothing like we're seeing now.
Nothing. Not even close.
Okay, so what happened after that? When did you realize it was the vaccination?
Yeah, when we moved to the Spokane Valley, which is where we live now, they had an autism program, and he was 5, and he was already qualified in special ed preschool because of his delayed speech. And when we got here, they said, MJ, we think he has autism. And so I started researching it, and we got him diagnosed to get him the assistance and the help that he needed. And as I started researching it, we did some testing, got into some holistic testing, and he tested toxic in 12 metals, off the charts toxic. Number 1, mercury, number 2, aluminum, and on down the list. And that's when I started to realize, mercury poisoning, a lot of that has the delayed speech. And so, doing a ton of research, trying to figure out what's going on, what's causing it, what can I do. Got onto the Yahoo groups at the time. That was, where we dug and did research, and a lot of other parents around the country, around the world, were finding those same things. So there was definitely a connection. And I never vaccinated after that. Yeah.
Both boys?
Yeah.
And so your older child, he was what, 28 or something?
Yeah, 28. And he doesn't have, we didn't test him. He's normal functioning,
Does he understand the dangers of vaccinations? Does he get it?
Both of them, or my oldest, or?
Both of them?
Yeah, yes, we talk about it. Yeah, because I talk to Preston a lot. He's higher functioning, but he's delayed quite a bit too. He probably will always live with me. And so my oldest definitely understands that, and we talk about it. And my younger son too, because I share his story quite a bit, and it's a big deal, especially after COVID. With the vaccine.
How did they both do during COVID with the pressure to get the shot?
Everything was shut down here, so we were all at home hanging out because their jobs, were they were sent home. They didn't have jobs for months and months and months. My youngest son, Preston, who we're talking about, that has autism. He works, a few hours a week at a restaurant. And so yeah, there was never a question that they would get we realized really quickly that was about the vaccination, and this thing was not a good thing. And
did you get COVID, all of you?
We never tested.
No.
Maybe we got a cold. Maybe.
And none of you have myocarditis, pericarditis?
None of us got vaccinated.
Or any of those things?
And actually, I realized during COVID that because of what happened to Preston, it made us, for 20 years, I haven't been able to trust the government, quite honestly. And it probably saved us, honest, because we knew we couldn't trust the government with this COVID vaccination.
What's your advice to the young mum that is confused?
I know it's hard. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of pressure. I think research. There's so many of us that this has happened to, and I plead with my relatives. But I also understand. There's a ton of pressure to go along with the CD schedule, but you can save your child. And of course, there's so many kids that are way worse off than Preston, and he's a blessing. It's been a blessing, but it's been very hard. So do your research, trust your gut. It's not worth it. And I know there's a trade-off. I know I have a niece that talked to a few months ago, and in order for her to continue her job and continue her, education and be on that track, she has to get her baby vaccinated in order to do daycare. And I love her, and I, will never judge her, but I pled with her, if you could do any way else, do it.
Because we both know that once your child is injured, you can't work anyway.
Right. it's a lifetime.
Nothing is worth it.
Right, yeah. And if I could do, and once I realized it was, there was a book I read, and it showed me the rates of autism, and the UK was about 10 years behind us in increasing on the CDC schedule, and it mirrored the rates, it paralleled the rates of autism, the increase. And then I read that UK backed off on their schedule. And once I saw that evidence and that research, I cried for weeks, realizing I could have prevented this. Yeah.
You never could have.
Yeah.
We didn't know.
And the doctors don't at all give you anything. I had some people that said, MJ, are you going to vaccinate your boys? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And when I asked the doctors, they just poo-pooed it. Yeah.
Thank you for sitting here and telling us your story and
Yes.
warning the people.
Yes, thank you.